Hi, I'm Anthony Bargnesi. I'm talking about getting your Linux environment, and you can see my details here. Now, it expands beyond just Linux. You can use, it's BSD applies to Mac OS X and even Windows if you're really adventurous. I wouldn't go about doing that. But so when we talk about the sort of home environment here, we're talking about the sort of shell. So you have, your Bash scripts, your aliases, your Bash functions, and everything in your sort of home directory, your user applications and tools. So we're talking about managing that shell environment. We go beyond that with the system environment. So can you manage your Linux system environment with Git? Can you manage your var, user, etc, bin, lib, everything inside of your system? That's the challenge here. And so the challenge, one of the problems is your environment always changes. So you might have your Bash scripts change, you have an alias here and there, and you change over time. Or you might have a package that you've added over time that you want to track. And so another issue here is also with kind of a different, or the same environment with different machines. So here you're saying you have the same home environment and you're replicating it to your desktop, laptop, or even your work machine. I mean, Kevin Mitnick would be nothing if he wasn't able to replicate the environment across machines. So we want to version control with Git. If you have an environment always changing, then you want to track your system, you want to be able to roll back to a stable state of your system at any point in time, and you want to see what changes over time. And if you have one environment and multiple machines, you can clone across repositories. So here you're versioning your shell. I mean, this is kind of a common listing of your home environment, but you might have your Bash scripts, your Xdefaults, your Vim, bin scripts, anything you want inside of your home directory that you want to version. So that's that. And then it moves on to versioning your shell. Simple Git commands would be initialize in the Git repository, add all untracked files from your Git, and just commit that simply as your first commit for versioning your shell. Git add-a is adding all untracked files. Here, when you're distributing your shell, you have a bare directory like you would have on GitHub or Bitbucket if you want secure private repos, and you can clone to two different machines here, dev and work. So I would clone the bare repository into those two. And here, if I modify a Bash script and commit to that directory, I can also push the change across to my work machine, and everything is synchronized to origin master. In this case, origin master would be the bare directory you clone to. Now, you can also experiment with Git branching for actually diverging home environments. So if you want to say you have a master base environment, and you want to branch off of that to a database environment, you could do that with Git branching. So versioning your system. Now here's kind of the larger scale picture. If you have your root file system, you might want to version that directly from root and ignore everything initially and only selectively add with git add force everything you want to track. And here's how you kind of do it. Initialize a simple, so that should be at the root there. Initialize a simple repository, echo to git ignore to ignore everything, and then force add everything you want to track from your root, and then obviously git commit. Everything should be fine. Another approach is if you want to spare your SSD drives, move all your Git repositories to your mechanical drives so that you don't have to have a deteriorating SSD. And then set your work tree to user every time you want to do a git status, git commit, git add, whatever it is. So you kind of see how it looks here. You'll have the repos over there, and all your Git directories are actually checksummed and correspond to each of the Git work trees. So you see the EA corresponds to etc in this case. So mechanical drives have one thing and the work trees on your main system. So the challenge of the versioning binaries is even though you can't diff things, you can still depend on the history of your system. You can still look at what changes over time, even though diffing binary is generally useless, even with Git. Sort of observational results, the disk usage, normally 60% of the work tree is what exists in the repository, as I've seen over time, and that was tested with the user directory. And sort of real-time statistics are basically the git add is really the most expensive operation that you can do, basically because that's staging for commit the next time, and staging binary files takes compression, and the compression on binary is generally ineffective. So the thought of the idea of the whole thing is use Git. Don't use tools, just use straight Git, and you can manage your Linux system environment or any type of environment over time. And this whole thing was tested with a netbook, so generally, and with the low specs, you can generally get good results out of it. I have a Git repository up with nothing. I will have something in there by the end of today, and that is it.